We also have Dr. Brahma Chelani, a defense expert, joining us on the broadcast at this moment, as well as James Bowden joining us on the broadcast. He's a Middle East expert. Brahma Chelani, first of all, we heard what our correspondent Vishal Vivek said about, especially about the projectiles from Yemen. What does this suggest about the coordination and the breadth of this entire offensive, according to you?
Before launching airstrikes on Iran, Israel had systematically undermined Iran's proxies, including Hezbollah, Hamas, and the Houthis. And Iran was unable to offer any tangible aid to its proxies. Now Israel has taken on Iran directly, and the risk is that this could go out of hand. This could escalate into a full-fledged war. Iran is not a small state or a weak state. It's a determined state, a state that has in the past shown strategic resilience, the resilience to bounce back from serious setbacks. Its nuclear program in the past has been penetrated by Israeli decoys. The sabotage in the nuclear program did not deter Iran from continuing to make progress in the nuclear program. It managed to restore its nuclear program. So there is a certain historical resilience that Iran has shown, and we'll have to see as to how far Israel is going to undermine Iran's nuclear ambitions and degrade its military capability. And we also have to see to what extent Iran is able to wreak damage in Israel, especially by targeting strategic sites in Israel.
All right, Mr. Brahma Chelani, thank you very much for joining us and sharing your views, very crucial views there on the broadcast. Also, from what we understand at this moment, the United States, the president, Donald Trump, he is meeting with his national security team following Israel's strike on Iran, and that meeting has concluded. This is from multiple reports that we are hearing. In fact, let me go across to James Bowden. Mr. Bowden, firstly, your thoughts on how things have escalated so rapidly, and what does it mean in the larger context right now?
Well, I think that in the larger context, I want to go back to what the last gentleman was saying. I really don't see the risk of a regional war or an escalation at this point. Iran does not share any borders with Israel, and they cannot move any conventional forces across that significant of a region. And right now, what it looks like is that their offensive missile capability has been extremely weakened, both through their large supplies to their proxies or allies in the Middle East, and how those have been decimated throughout Israel's and the United States' campaigns in the region over the last year and a half or more. So in terms of escalation, I don't see a lot happening. The Iranians are still right now just on the back foot trying to absorb these attacks, and it's going to be a little bit longer before they can organize a real response to this.
I also have Bethany Mandel, journalist from Washington, D.C., joining us at this moment. Bethany, from what we understand, that crucial meeting, Donald Trump meeting with his national security team following this particular offensive from Israel on Iran, that meeting has concluded. How is the United States looking at the recent developments, especially in Iran and Israel right now?
I think that the administration, the Trump administration, is grateful to Israel for taking this on, because the Iranian threat was not just a threat on Israel, it was a threat on the whole Western world and on us here in America. They were days away from capability of having a nuclear bomb and ballistic missiles that could reach me here in Washington. So the Trump administration, from all appearances, is very grateful that the Israeli government has taken this on. The Israeli people have taken this on, and there's a lot of support being offered behind the scenes. I've heard anecdotally that literally 60 seconds after the attacks began, a White House source messaged someone high up in Israel and said, "Good luck." The White House knew that this was happening and were supportive of it.
I also have Mr. Daniel Block joining us right now. He's a senior editor, foreign affairs, and contributing editor at the Washington Monthly. Mr. Block, as far as this entire escalation is concerned, this is a dramatic escalation. Break it down for us. What do you believe were the key triggers here that pushed the conflict to this all-out offensive phase, particularly concerning the targeting of the nuclear facilities?
Well, I think a couple of things are at play here. We know that this is something the Israelis have wanted to do for quite some time. They've been eager to strike Iran for a while now. I mean, dating back really to the to the Obama administration. Netanyahu has wanted to attack Iran. And the US government has put them off, has told them not to do it for long periods of time. I think what's changed now are a couple of things. One is the arrival of the Trump administration. And now just how supportive Trump was or wasn't, we don't quite know yet. There's a lot of rumors, a lot of speculation, a lot of mixed signals. It's quite possible, as Bethany said, that they gave a green light. But certainly they were more permissive than Obama or Biden were when it came to the idea of attacking Iran. I think the other key thing that happened is that for Israel, they saw an opening. Iran is weaker now than it was 2 years ago, even 1 year ago. The Israeli operations against Hezbollah, against other Iranian allies in the region really weakened what is kind of called the axis of resistance, which is this network of proxies and partners that Iran would use in order to attack Israel or attack US forces in the region. And then Israel in 2024 also went ahead and it did a lot of damage to Iran's air defense systems. And so between those two things, I think you have an Israeli government that feels like now was the moment of opportunity they had. Now is the best chance they were going to have to strike. And I think if you combine that with an American administration that's more permissive of an Israeli attack on Iran, you have a window and the type of action we saw happen last night.
Right. James Bowden, before I talk about Iranian intent here, I also want to understand from you, we've heard from Ayatollah Khamenei. He has made a statement. In fact, the Iranian president, Masoud Pezeshkian, he has said that Iran's response to the Israeli aggression will be tough and legitimate. What do you make of how Iran is going to respond to going further right now?
It's definitely going to be a wait and see. Again, Iran has used a lot of its missile capacity in the last few responses that it has had against Israel. And I really foresee, and we have already seen this demonstrated through their extensive use of drones sent across. And so why they haven't responded with the missiles, we're not quite sure, but I think it's because they lack that capacity. So how they're going to respond remains an open question. I am definitely watching Ansar-Allah as they are starting to send missiles. Now, we've only seen, I think, 1 or 2 sent aloft since this morning, but I anticipate more. And their strike options are very limited. They lost Hezbollah, which was basically the queen on the chessboard, and they lost that ability for them to threaten Israel. So it's going to be interesting to see how they make that response.
Right. What is also going to be interesting is to see the international community coming together in response to this recent development. From what we see right now, the United Nations has also called for Israel and Iran to, and I quote, show maximum restraint to avoid deeper conflict. What do you make of this entire, statement that is coming from United Nations, and how do you see the role of international communities and partners for both the countries, Bethany, going forward from now?
I mean, I think the United Nations, they always say de-escalation, 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 but the atomic agency that was in charge of making sure that they did not get to the point of having a nuke, stated very clearly that they had failed and that Iran was nearing extremely close to that point. I don't think it really matters what the international community thinks about it. I think the only thing that matters is that countries will work together with Israel like they did when Iran sent drones and rockets and missiles the last time, that they work together to shoot them down to protect the assets of the entire region. That is what is the most important. And I think, we'll hear the same sort of babble that we hear from the United Nations about de-escalation. But, as an American and as a Republican here, I'm just grateful that we have a president who doesn't listen.
Daniel Brock, speaking about the Iranian intent, what is Iran's strategic objective in launching such a widespread attack, including potentially involving non-state actors like those in Yemen?
Well, I think perhaps first and foremost, the Iranian government wants to save face. So they can't not respond. They need to launch some sort of strike against Israel. They've been attacked. This is a bigger attack. I think this is probably the biggest attack since the Iran-Iraq war that they've experienced. So they have to have some sort of response. And by activating kind of the axis of resistance, as it were, having proxies and different partner groups attack Israel, they're able to up the pressure to send more missiles at Israel than they otherwise might, as well as whatever of their own assets they're sending, drones, ballistic missiles of different types. So part of it is signaling. I do think that they're going to want to hurt Israel. They're going, this is not going to be, or they're not going to want it to be merely a symbolic response. I think they're going to want to try and hit Israeli military facilities. They're going to probably want to hit Israeli cities. They're going to want to try and match as best they can whatever damage Israel did to them to Israel. Now, I am incredibly skeptical that they're going to be able to do that. Like I was saying earlier, and as other guests have been saying, Iran lacks the capacity, especially after the last couple of years of war, to retaliate in kind. And Iran does not have the same network of partners that can help shield it from incoming missiles that Israel does. So I doubt that they'll be able to respond with the same degree of force, but they have to do something, in part for their own citizens, in part to save face domestically.
Right, and as I had mentioned earlier, that these incidents, they signal a new phase in the Israel-Iran conflict, and this has heightened nuclear tensions across both the countries as well. Daniel Brock, James Bowden, and Bethany Mandel, thank you very much.